All right, we're live. Ahoy, Thomas.
Ahoy, hoy, Eric.
That's a cruise ship talk for hello.
It's also it also was Edison's favorite way to say hello when he answered the phone.
Ahoy?
Ahoy, hoy.
Ah, I didn't know that.
He preferred the nautical terms. How you
How are you
doing?
doing? I'm doing well. I'm back from vacation. I'm back from my cruise. I'm back on streaming data, which is nice. I didn't miss it as much as I thought. So I had no internet connectivity during my trip. Not that I couldn't have it. We do live in modern times, and if I wanted to pay, whatever the cost was, I could have Wi-Fi on the ship. It was more of a matter of principle, I think, with the wife and family, to show them that I wasn't going to work. I wasn't going to check my emails or check my Slack.
Right,
So
you're connecting with them.
yeah, out of principle, I didn't purchase the data plan. Now we did hit shore a couple times, and I was able to get out a couple of emails. We we were at our first stop was this island right off the coast of California, Catalina Island. If you're not familiar with it, it's not a big island. It's about, I think it's 15 or 20 miles off the coast of Long Beach, and that was kind of our first stop. And you can typically pick up cell service there from time to time. But then down in Mexico, I had to turn on international roaming for that, which had me weirded out a little bit. I got to check my bill because I called AT&T before I left. That's the carrier I use, and according to my plan, I have free roaming down in Mexico, which was a benefit. I used to have a job where I went pretty deep into Mexico, a place called Guadalajara, and I would go down there pretty regularly, and never had my cell phone when I went down there. The company provided another cell phone when I was down in Mexico, but um, so yeah, apparently I have it now, but I don't know. I'll know for sure when I check my bill. See if I got dinged a couple $100 for checking my email while I was down there. So I wasn't totally good, but I was good for most of the part.
So this is a Pollos Hermanos job you used to have, driving trucks
Puyos.
across the border.
Oh yeah, when I was the Coyote. Yeah, yeah. Hey, have you ever been on a cruise?
Haven't. Cruises, the only thing I know about cruises is that every once in a while the entire sewage system backs up into the rooms. So I
Yes,
kind of
it's
that shied off a
unpleasant.
little bit of that.
It was my first experience. My wife has done it before. I thought it was nice. Um, I enjoyed it. I have seen those horror stories as well, so I was a little skeptical, but we didn't go that far. I mean, physically, the places we went, which was Catalina Island and Ensenada, Mexico, from where I live in San Diego, I couldn't drive to Catalina Island, but I could drive to Long Beach, catch a ferry, and go to Catalina Island, all within a matter of 2 to 3 hours. And then I can drive down to where we were in Mexico, and again about 2 or 3 hours. So we were never that far from from land. It's not like we were on the Titanic going across the Atlantic or anything like that. It was so I felt okay about it.
Yeah, that's kind of my other problem is that the industry is known. Its most famous cruise was the one that almost killed everyone on board. You know, it's like
well, well, what was
that's kind
funny.
of bad.
What was funny is, I'm a drinker. I can drink. I drink socially, and
I've
I'm
heard
a very
tales.
social person. Yeah. Um, but on the ship, like when they have you on the ship, it's all about making money at that point, right? I mean,
Right.
you're just constantly being bombarded with, "Hey, buy this. Hey, let's take a picture of you here. Buy it. Buy it. Buy it." And with alcohol, that's their big seller. But you have an option. You can actually buy unlimited alcohol before you go on the ship. Now you have to buy the alcohol on the ship. You're not allowed to bring your own. You can there's some caveats. You can bring like a 6-pack or a bottle of wine, but then you have to pay them for a corking fee. So I was okay with that. I could have spent for the unlimited alcohol and felt like I got my money's worth. But in order to do that, you have to pay for unlimited alcohol for everybody who's over 21 in your cabin, which would have been myself and my wife. And she's not a heavy drinker at all. And there's no way I would have drank enough and stayed conscious to make it worth what it would have cost for the both of us. So we opted.
Sounds like you lack determination.
So we opted not to do the unlimited alcohol. We figured, we'll just pay for alcohol as we want it, and it should still be cheaper. But there is unlimited alcohol plans that you can buy. So the first day we're on the ship, we were having very unusual weather for Southern California, where it was raining, a ton of wind. And actually, they ended up shifting our schedule around where we went out to sea the first day as opposed to going to Catalina as we were scheduled to do. They ended up going to sea to avoid the rain. So they actually go out to the ocean and start driving or sailing around, staying out of the rain. And that's all we did the first day. But the the sea was still rough. It was very rough. And you could feel it moving. Like you're standing there and you're moving around a little bit. So couple that with unlimited alcohol, and the first day on the ship, everybody was either seasick or hungover. There was like nobody walking around without a bag to throw up in.
That sounds like a party.
Oh man! Fortunately, we were fine. Nobody in my family got too upset. One of my daughters took some Dramamine, but I mean, it never limited her. She never got sick, but it was an experience. I enjoyed it. I'd do it again. I would. I know there's that PHP Tech cruise. I asked the wife about it. She's like, "Yeah, no, I don't know if I'm ready to go on a cruise with a bunch of your geek friends yet, but good to know."
Yeah. Now, speaking of getting sick, boy, did I get sick this week.
Yeah, I know, man. You don't get sick that often.
I get sick exactly once a year.
Yeah.
I get sick. Yeah, this week in January every year. Now, I used to be a smoker, and I would get sick, and I was out for a month. I mean, I was an idiot, smoked a lot, and didn't get better for a huge period of time. So now in this case, it knocked me out for a good 3 days. But being a work from home employee, I had no excuse to not, do what I could still. So I'm still working every day. I'm just taking off when the train hits me at 4:00.
Yeah.
But we had my last meetup this week.
And I wasn't there.
You know, son of a. And I almost didn't make it.
So you were sick then, huh?
I'm in the process of recovery. I was in the process of recovery then. Fortunately, I had enough Sculpin to confuse my body. I wasn't able to distinguish between being sick and being just generally disoriented from alcohol. So it all worked out. I got home at like 9:30 and took a nap. It was great. But yeah, now you can probably hear it in my voice. I am in the process of recovery.
Yeah, you can tell you're still not 100%.
Not 100%, but I've got a 12-pack tonight that says I'll be all better by tomorrow.
That's good. So obviously I haven't been doing a lot of work. That was a weird experience, especially being kind of the owner of our little.
Now this is
company.
your first trip. This is your first trip as owner of a company. That must have weighed heavy on you.
It was stressful, dude. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't think it was going to be stressful. I thought I was gonna just be like, oh yeah, I'm not worried about it. I can unplug, not an issue. Man, it was stressful. I don't know if it's me. I don't know if I need better stress management tools or what, but man, I couldn't sleep at night. So yeah, it was, you know, the whole consulting world is a weird beast. Typically as a consultant, that week I would have been on a cruise. Um, you know, you don't get paid for that, right? I mean, you're not working, you're not getting paid. So, it's just a stressful experience, and owning a company and just fortunately, I have really good people that work with us, and I got a pretty good partner who can't seem to find time to be on a podcast, but that's because he's so busy. Um, so I shouldn't have been as stressed as I was, but I don't know. I'm a stressful guy,
You
but
stress me out.
I missed a lot of excitement this week in our
Yeah,
world of Laravel.
yeah, we've had a really impressive amount of news sort of flush forward this week. I mean, none of it surprising, but still an impressive amount of news. One of the first
Yeah,
things that happened was Laravel 5.4.
got released, huh?
Yeah, the Laravel 5.4 got released, and then 5.4.1, and then 5.4.2, and then 3, 4, and 5, and our current version is 5.4.6. I
It
think we're.
hasn't even been it hasn't
I think
even been
it's been
released
4
6 days yet.
days. Yeah,
So I know
and
we've been talking about. Go ahead.
I mean that versioning has always been sort of a joke with us when we do meetups and stuff, but it does continue to concern me that there are so many day one patches and day two patches every time a big version comes out. Um, I use it in an enterprise environment, and seeing 6 patches in 4 days can be disheartening, and it can be hard to sell something that's
Yeah,
seeing
but
that much change.
in an enterprise environment, any new release you usually let bake for a month or two before you start to explore it, right?
Yeah,
So yeah, but I
you
get I get what you're saying. I think a lot of it is just when you're pushing towards a release, you start coding in a bubble, and you don't, you're testing everything and you're making sure um, everything is working well, but you you don't catch all the not necessarily edge cases or anything like that. It's just there's just so many scenarios out there to test that you're missing, and I think it's just one of those things that once you release, you get flooded with all these people who are checking out aspects of the code that maybe you didn't look at, and I think it's actually beneficial to Laravel because I think it speaks to how quick Taylor can move to patch this stuff. And as the first couple of days, as he starts getting feedback the the public on smaller issues that maybe he missed in testing, he's able to quickly patch it, push it out, and not worry about it. It's not like, okay, well, for the next month we're gonna do a bug report and collect all the bugs and patch
yeah,
everything for the next 30 days. He's just able to sit there that day and say, oh yeah, let me fix that real fast, boom, 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 send it out and be done with it.
and I think it's safe to say that breaking Laravel is not like breaking Symfony at this point, but I do hope at some point that it does get that level of notoriety and use.
Mm-hmm. So we talked about a lot of the new uh, features and components in Laravel 5.4. Um, anything? I mean, during the release, nothing surprising, nothing new that came out. It's like, oh, hey, I didn't see anybody talk about that. Uh, but is there anything there that kind of has you interested, or?
Well, Laravel Dusk for sure. Acceptance testing is my new favorite thing right now, and Dusk did release alongside 5.4. Um, there isn't anything game changing. We know that 5.5 was going to require PHP 7, but that just hasn't occurred yet.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Laravel Mix is now replacing Laravel Elixir, and
Mhm.
high order collection messages might be useful for me. We're gonna have to see really what I can apply it to. Nothing really selling it the way that 5.3 sold me.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I'm still kind of on the fence where I am with the quote unquote routing improvements. I don't know if I like the syntax that much. Um, but that's something that got released, and I don't think you're forced to use it. The automatic facades I thought was very cool when I first saw it,
Yeah,
but I don't think I probably won't use that. Just because I don't like how it looks. I don't like how the syntax look. I like doing the type hinting and injections, and I don't know. I still think it's a very cool concept. But yeah, I don't know if I don't know how I would use that, or if I would use that. Um, the markdown for emails I think is pretty cool. I don't
yeah,
do a I have a client that has a lot of emails. He's not on Laravel yet. Where we've been slowly moving him to a Laravel install. So I'm real interested in trying to get him up to 5.4 and maybe taking advantage of some of this markdown for emails. But yeah, kind of cool. And then right on the heels of that release, of course, our favorite Laravel service, or one of our favorite Laravel services, Laravel Shift, announced that he did everything he needed for people to shift their apps to 5.4. So if you are on a 5.3 or earlier, you can actually there's an upgrade path through Laravel Shift, which is run by Jason. I keep saying his last name is McCree, but it's not McCree, but it looks like McCree to me. But yeah, the guy over at Laravel Shift. See, God damn it, they're
Jason
messing with my head,
McCrary.
Tom. McCrary. They're messing with my head, Thomas. I'm gonna tell you. So can I go off on a little bit of a tangent, a little bit?
I I I don't even have the power to stop you.
So we talked about we talked about what did we talk about? True North,
Yes.
and we were talking to, and we really just kind of brushed over. It's not like we went into an in-depth story about True North and who they were. We just happened to mention that True North had their final um, conference and they were going away, and I believe I had kind of mentioned, oh yeah, True North, that's the conference that's run by Grumpy and those guys, is what I said. Grumpy and those guys.
Yes.
And I totally got called out on it. And I should have been, because so so Peter Mess, who is the organizer of True North PHP, tweeted something about how he was referred to as quote unquote those guys. And I'm like, I felt like a complete heel, because I mean, I know he was joking. I doubt he was seriously upset about it, but
Well, his Twitter profile picture is him smiling, so I think we're okay. But
First thing, I was honored to find out he listened to the show. I'm like, oh, cool, he listens to our show. And then I'm like, what a dick I must sound like to him. But I completely appreciate what he's saying, because as a community organizer, you don't do it for the money. You don't do it for the recognition. But when there is recognition to be had, you'd like to make sure it's placed correctly. And I've been on the receiving end of that several times, where I have not gotten the recognition and it had gone to somebody else. And I know what that feels like. And I did it to him, and I do it to everybody. I just did it to Jason. Yeah, that guy. It's like
that guy.
I should I should have that information. And I apologize to Peter, because I mean I know everything involved in trying to organize these things, and especially doing a conference like that. I tried to do one in San Diego and I gave up. I just didn't have the time to put into the effort. So I apologize to him. I did let him know that he was an awesome one of those guys, but I'm not sure if that if that made it better or worse.
Yeah. If it makes Peter Meth feel any better, Eric is one of those guys.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? One of those guys.
yeah, I'm a dick. What can I say?
Well, speaking
Speaking
of
of
conferences,
speaking of
uh,
conferences,
Laracon US in their small new venue has completely sold out.
you, you know, it's got to you've got to ask the question now: why did you move to New York? Why did you move to a smaller venue? Why? I mean, clearly people want to go to this conference. We're what are we 6 months out? I mean, we're not even close to the damn conference, and he's sold out in New York, which is extremely expensive. That became an expensive conference, not the conference itself. The conference is very affordable, but that whole going to that conference,
accommodations and
yeah,
food.
that became an expensive conference. Why are you? Why either stay in Louisville where the size was the same, but travel was cheaper, or go
Are you saying
bigger?
are you saying that this stinks of corruption?
I think Trump is involved. I don't know how yet.
We talked about this. You can't
I can't avoid it. I
we
tried not
start
talking politics.
spiral out of control quickly.
So yeah. If you haven't got your ticket for Laracon 2017, I guess they're putting together a wait list for cancellations. But yeah, they're sold out, man. I've got my ticket, so I'm not too concerned about it. But I know the guys over at Larachat wanted to go. We were talking about all trying to get there and do a podcast from there. And try to get people to try to do a big roundtable, maybe of a lot of other podcasters, Laravel podcasters. But I don't know if they got their tickets or not. I haven't actually spoken to them since I've been back in town. But yeah, that conference does, and I'm telling you, it is one of the best. Just even PHP conferences, one of the best conferences out there. The single track that he puts together, and the way that they do it is just it's a really good conference. I enjoy it. I'm looking forward to it this year. I hope next year maybe it goes bigger.
You mean San Diego? I mean, I know you mean San
Did,
Diego.
did you see my tweet to Taylor?
Yeah, I always see your tweets. I
Yeah,
have a,
bigger, better tacos. San
much better
Diego
tacos.
2018.
For now, I mean, 2018, we might not have anyone to make tacos.
Stop it! You
I'm not.
stop it now.
I didn't say his name.
I was just
Well, I,
happy
I
I
have
was
a,
able to get home.
I have a twofer for you. Are you still using PhpStorm, or are you still in Vim land?
I am still in Storm. I still use Storm. I still fire up them most a lot, but I still go to Storm. Yeah, I'm still in Storm.
Well, along with the 5.4 release, PhpStorm EAP, their early access platform,
Mm-hmm.
uh, created support for blade components and slots. These are new features in 5.4.
Yep, I saw that. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's very cool to see them moving this quickly. So if you're on PhpStorm and you're upgrading to 5.4, then yeah, hit the EAP platform, get updated because it's got all the new tools you're going to need for that.
Yeah,
However, some really interesting news came out from the Microsoft GitHub account. Did you see
I
this?
saw you post this. Yeah, what's this about?
Well, somebody at Microsoft in an official capacity appears to be building a PHP parser for the purpose of implementing PHP in a Microsoft IDE. So
Interesting.
the it is a lengthy process, but they are at phase 5 now of their 6-phase process, which is officially supporting PHP syntax and grammar and implementing real world tests of real world applications in PHP. It sounds like Visual Studio might be getting support for PHP, which would be a pretty big win for the PHP world.
Yeah, I think so. I have a theory. well, so the
The
early
world is ending.
2000s. Well, I'm trying to figure out how I should frame this. The early 2000s. I was working for a big enterprise company, and I was trying to push. I was trying to introduce it to PHP and they were a Java shop, and they were actually another really obscure language before then. And when they were moving from this obscure language to another language, and they were exploring different languages, I was trying to introduce them to PHP, and they ended up going Java. But I got enough of a foothold in there where a couple projects started up in PHP, and there was enough for us to have to support it moving forward. And there was a time, and I forget exactly when, I would probably, if I had to guess right now, probably say around 04, 05, where Microsoft really started to seem to buddy up with PHP. Like they started getting they really started trying to make it easier to have PHP support for IIS. They were doing some partnerships with Zen. I actually thought that they were going to purchase Zen. That was like my prediction one year. I'm like, you know what? I wouldn't be surprised to find out Microsoft buys Zen, who they're the big corporate PHP provider. I kept having this suspicion that Microsoft was going to buy Zen, but Microsoft has always had like this weird like romance with PHP. Like they don't discard it. They kind of, but they never really treated it as a first class citizen. But they keep it close. They show it some love. So I'm always kind of curious about why they do that and what their long term plans are for it.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what Microsoft is going to do this year, because they've sort of done things over the last year that make you go, what's the end game here? Uh,
Yeah.
Support for things like Docker built into the kernel, and then PHP love from the IDE side here. You just wonder, what are they going to do next? Are they going to just go open source completely?
It wouldn't be the craziest thing.
No.
I I don't know. I just keep keeping an eye on it.
In
And
a year full of crazy things, I don't think that would be the craziest thing,
this is true.
which is hard to even say. Jesus.
Well, I got good news for you, Thomas.
Yes, sir.
If you did miss out on Laracon 2017, you can still go to some pretty cool PHP conferences.
I might go to this.
PHP Tech obviously happens in May. That's a pretty good one. But before PHP Tech, in April, Lone Star PHP happens. That's the community PHP conference that they have down in Texas, which is still
Addison, Texas.
still a state of the U.S. Currently, you don't know in April they may have finally succeeded, but I'm not going to tell you who runs this one because I didn't do the research on the names, and I don't want to say those people or anything like that. I'm not getting sucked into that one again. However, this is the last year for Lone Star.
Really?
And at least that's what it said. It said for our 7th and last conference together. So I interpreted that as this is going to be our last conference, our last Lone Star, but I could be wrong. But for that purpose alone, I kind of want to get down there. I think it's on, I forget what day it is, but they typically have it on a weekend. And it's really one of those things where you can fly in one day, stay overnight, and fly out the next day.
I'll tell you what, as much as you avoided making a mistake by not saying any names, you did already make a mistake. This one's starting on Thursday, April 20th.
Okay. Well, I said it wasn't sure. I said I thought it was a weekend. So it's Thursday. It's a Thursday Friday conference. I know it's 2 days, right?
Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It's a 3-day. Only 2 mistakes so far.
Year. Only 2 mistakes. Wow, it's a 3-day conference.
Say there's not going to be an after party. Say it. There's going to be an after party.
There's not going to be an after party. What? There's going to be an after party?
3 mistakes. There's going to be an after party, an open source software room. It'll be fantastic.
This is one of the community conferences I've long wanted to go to, and I'm disappointed to hear that it's the final year of it, and I'm struggling not to go to it because I'm already going to Laracon. I'm already going to PHP Tech. I can't afford 3 conferences. There's no way I can go to this one, but man, I really want to go to this one.
I think I'm doing this one.
Yeah. Dang.
Well, we got to spread ourselves out. We got to cover. If it's just us both going to the same events every year, our listeners going to be bored.
All 3 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me know if you go to this one. It'll be. I think they always have some really good talks at this one. So yeah, I think the one is. What's the Southern Florida one? I think that's going on right now, isn't it? Sunshine. Sunshine's going on. I think Sunshine's happening this right now as we speak. Maybe not.
Sunshine PHP. Our current schedule is February 2nd through 4th, so
next week.
We'll see it next week.
Yeah, that's another big one. A lot of people go to. But yeah, so Lone Star PHP in April, is that still right? Is April right? What did you say it was? Okay. Lone Star PHP in April. Anybody interested in attending a pretty good and pretty affordable PHP conference, go check that out.
Yeah, and I really want to hear a coding talk with a Southern drawl. I haven't heard that before.
All right. Do you know
me?
Do you know? I said I was sharing with you. Just to kind of go off topic a little bit. I was sharing with you about how I was moving from using Vagrant for my development work to using Docker.
Yeah.
So been struggling with a couple of little quirky things with that. Right before I left for vacation, and it's weird and probably not worth going into. And a lot of it has to do with the complexity of my development environment because I set up. I work a lot with developing microservices that have to talk to other microservices that do these different things. And getting that set up in Docker, I've run into a couple challenges. And for my main machine, I have 2 machines I work off. I have a desktop that I work off, and then I have my laptop. So for my main desktop, I ended up backed in the corner, had to spin up another Vagrant box to get some work done. For my laptop, right before I left, and I'm going to butcher his name. I seem to talk about this guy every podcast, and I don't know why. I guess he's just really smart and he does really cool things. But Michael Duranda is how I'm going to say his name. Mike D. He said it was okay to call him Mike D. He had done a post, and I think I talked about it. I might have talked about it on the last podcast, but he'd done a post on just using Valet. So my justification for wanting to use Docker, and the same justification I had for using Vagrant, was I have to switch a lot between PHP versions. Now, yeah. I also have some dependencies on the web server I use, whether it's Vagrant or Apache, and that's one of the reasons why I keep coming back to my Docker and Vagrant solution. And I have some really quirky kind of configurations for clients. But that aside, the overwhelming reason I was going that way was to switch from different versions of PHP. And what he had released a blog post about how to switch versions of PHP using Valet. So I read through it, and it was it's really Mac specific, which again, Valet is Mac specific. Although I did find an open source application out there that's very close to Valet. And the name escapes me, so I won't go down too far down that way. But anyways, Valet is very, very Mac specific. So I was fine with his solution, which was leveraging Brew to switch between different versions of PHP. And I found myself while I was on my trip, even though I didn't have internet, I wanted to do some development, and I waited for everybody to be asleep. Everybody was sleeping.
Naturally.
I was sitting out on the balcony with my
Chloroform
laptop.
is a powerful drug.
That's right.
Just break the bottle in the middle of the room, close the door for a second, everyone goes out. It's instant bedtime.
So I found myself implementing his valet solution and pretty happy with the results I got. So again, setting aside the need for some special configurations within the OS and what web servers I use, for 99% of the development I do, maybe not 99, let's say 90% of the development I do, just being able to switch versions of PHP is sufficient. And so I found myself liking his solution enough that I did end up implementing it on my main development machine. And I'll let you know how that goes. I just did that yesterday. So I got back on Thursday and I sat down to do some work yesterday. I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to go ahead and implement this Valet solution here too. So I went ahead and did that. I need to write a function because the way he has it set up where you have to switch between different versions of PHP is a little wonky. And I'm pretty sure I can get it all done in one quick function that I actually think may be beneficial to submit back to the Valet project if I can get it working. So we'll see if I can't get that scripted out. But yeah, I'm now using Valet on my main development machine.
So all the way back to Vagrant Homestead.
No, Valet.
Well, Valet is Vagrant.
No, it's not. Valet is. No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not. Stop saying yeah, it is when I say no, it's not, because you're defeating the purpose of me saying no, it's not. Valet, you're using your systems, all your system resources. The only thing Valet does, and actually the web server pulls in now is Nginx, which is new to the newest Valet, and it does that through Brew. But you're using all your system resources. You're not virtualizing anything. The cool thing it does is it adds this DNS service that again it pulls in through Brew that does the automatic resolution for you, so you don't have to go in and edit your host file anymore. It's just whatever folder you're working in, it assumes that's the URL dot whatever the dot is. I think by default is .dev, but you can change it to whatever you want.
Well, geez,
so there's
right.
Yeah, it's really slick. Yeah, and it's funny because last podcast we talked about. We stumbled onto, oh man, I have to go back and look at it now, but we stumbled on to talking about a developer who had another podcast. And I mentioned like, oh man, I've got to go subscribe to that podcast now. And I subscribed to it. And it turns out he's not doing that podcast anymore because he does this Cron Weekly newsletter. I'm like, hey, I subscribe to that Cron Weekly. And it was in that Cron Weekly newsletter that I found the alternative solution to Valet, which if I can hunt that down, I'll throw it in the show notes. Yeah.
We need to take a pause break here. My
Yep.
fluid intake level has required a pause break.
That's perfect because I can go look up that Cron Weekly stuff while you do that.
What? Okay.
Hold on one second. Let me look that up real quick. I don't know. Yeah, I don't even know where my camera is now. Let's see, archives. Hotel.
Okay.
You want to get back into it?
Yeah, but forewarning, I have a little bit of a soapbox thing for the next item.
Okay. Well, we got a good 10 minutes or so to kill. So I'll wrap this up real quick, and then you can. What's the next item?
Miss Universe Indonesia is a coder
You got a
in
soapbox
PHP
for that?
because there's a related topic.
All right. Let's jump into that. Let me wrap this one up. We'll talk about this a little bit, and then we'll go right into there. Okay.
Okay, okay.
You all set?
Yep.
Okay. Here it is. It's called Hotel. So the guy who see, I did it again. The guy. I could have looked up the guy's name. I still forget what his name is.
For
Let me look him
shame.
up here. Cron Weekly is what it's called, and the person who does Cron Weekly is a person. Oh man, you have to say this name for me, Thomas. I'm terrible at names. Look
Matthias
up Cron
Kinnear.
Weekly. Matthias Kinnear. So Matthias Kinnear, we were talking about him last week, and he had a podcast which he's not actively doing anymore. But and I forget why he came up on our podcast, but it turns out he does Crime Weekly, which I realized, hey, I subscribe to Crime Weekly.
He came up
And
because he was the guy who wrote that article about oh geez, we talked about it last week.
You're right. You're so close, dude. He did come up with it was an article that we were reading from him.
Yeah, he wrote the article about WordPress doing cryptographic updates when we were talking about
go.
why is this the guy writing about the WordPress? He's not affiliated.
That's right. See, there you go. You're doing your job, Thomas. You're doing your job.
Yay!
You're doing it good.
Yay.
So this leads me to a whole series of things, but ultimately where we get to is I'm looking through my latest Crime Weekly. I'm like, oh, I didn't realize this was the same guy. And in that Crime Weekly, he talks about an application called Hotel. Hotel is very much like Valet is to the Mac, but it's cross-platform. Not only is it cross-platform, Valet is very specific. So Valet was developed by Adam Wathan and Taylor. It's very focused on PHP. Needless to say, very focused on Laravel, but focused on PHP. It can identify WordPress, blah, blah, blah. I shouldn't say blah, blah, blah. It's a lot of stuff it does, but it's focused on PHP. Hotel, which has a lot of the same similar properties as Valet, except it's cross-platform, not only focuses on PHP, but it can identify Node, Ruby, Python. It has a lot of different configurations it can do. So I don't know. Maybe I'll take another look at this Hotel and see if I can't get it implemented. I've been jacking around with my development environment enough already, where I'm getting ready to go back to work. I don't want to mess with it anymore. But Hotel looks appealing, especially if I can switch PHP versions. But if you're a non-Mac user and you've been envious of your Mac friends who use Valet, I suggest that you give Hotel a shot. And I'll make a note to add that in the show notes. But if you look up Cron Weekly, oh god damn it, Eric, Cron Weekly, I think it was, if you go to the archives and you click on issue 63, and I would be right. Issue 63 under Tools and Projects of Cron Weekly. There's Hotel is mentioned down there. Man, that was a long tangent. Sorry about that.
No. That was you got all the names right as far as I could tell.
I'm gonna make that. I'm gonna make an effort not to just say those people or those guys. I've been called out recently because I'm still old school and say those guys when I say those, when I'm referring to various genders of people. I'll refer to them as those guys, which I've
To be
been
fair, you did say it in an incredibly racist context.
race sexist. I didn't say those white guys. Jesus.
No, no, no one was saying you said those white guys.
Well, what if?
Nah,
Oh,
moving on.
I gotcha. Uh, man, I hate you. All
Yeah, I
right,
know.
moving on. Moving on.
Are you ready for my soapbox? I
Well,
have a
you
soapbox.
can't announce that as a soapbox.
It is
Then
no.
yeah,
I am happy to announce this as a soapbox issue.
lay it on me.
Um, so I'll start with the good news side of this is that the the Miss Universe Indonesia contestant is a PHP coder. She's actually a sort of a broader form coder. She's written apps and things like that, but she picked up PHP in the beginning and has
In,
really done a lot of good stuff with it.
in her video, she calls herself a PHP. She says, "I learned PHP and enjoyed it," or something. She specifically mentions developing in PHP.
Yeah, and so I love this. I love seeing people in the community who are coders as hobbyists, coders as personal development type things. Um,
Mhm.
coding professionally. I like to see all of it. And when someone is a contestant on something like Miss Universe, I think saying, "Yeah, I'm a coder," is good now. It's something that you can say that doesn't take away from you as a person. Whereas, a good number of years ago, that would have been too nerdy. It would have been too, I don't know. It, I'm glad to see the progress that we've made.
Uh-huh. I agree.
But it does remind me of one of my favorite makers right now. Uh, right now, one of my favorite makers in the maker verse is a woman named Sexy Cyborg. I'm
I don't think that's her birth given name.
no, I don't I don't think it actually is, but uh, if you go ahead and pull her up on Twitter, I think
I'm
her,
looking
her
for this.
on Twitter she's real sexy cyborg.
Real sexy cyborg.
So her name is Naomi Wu, and she is a maker from China,
Okay.
and she's having a lot of trouble with the maker community, especially the maker community in the United States.
All right.
Um, she is a very, very smart, very, very capable person. She lives in China and goes to a lot of maker events in China, but she's sort of getting blacklisted by a lot of the maker community because she likes to do sexy stuff. She has maker projects that involve things that are risque. And even though when
Interesting.
she attends events, she dresses and acts accordingly to the events that she's attending, she's getting blacklisted out of maker fairs because they're just afraid that she's going to be too sexy for their demographic.
What is that a thing? It's good
Well,
the
it
auto
is.
industry didn't feel that.
Now, I will give it to you. The stuff she does is real risque sometimes.
All right,
She used
you need to explain this. What's that mean, real risque? I mean, I know what that means, but what is she doing that's real?
so she made a shirt that was made out of LCD panels that could turn transparent or darken based off of the flow of electricity going through them.
Uh,
So at the sort of flick of a switch, she was topless in one
oh,
sense,
jeez.
right? And she went out to a nightclub that was adults only and enjoyed this outfit, enjoyed the attention that she got from it, and enjoyed showing people what makers can do that isn't just the typical maker culture of batarangs and car modifications. It was stuff that can appeal exclusively to women who want to make stuff that makes them attractive, makes them feel attractive as women. And she makes these valid points that there are girls out there who are 15, 16, 17, and they understand what risque is. They understand what they want to do, and that having this sort of male-dominated community say that only knit caps made by girls are acceptable and not sexy underwear made by girls is acceptable is hurting the community. It's turning women away because they're not allowed to work on the projects that they want to work on because it's
Mm-hmm.
not acceptable to their community standards. Um, and it speaks a lot to the privilege of the white men in the maker community to say, "Oh, I don't think you could make that. That's too sexy." But then, naturally, there's nothing that a white man could make that was too sexy to exclude them from some kind of maker event. So I really want to draw attention to her because she is working very hard to get women involved in 3D printing, in making, in coding, and not just in the risque ways that she's known for grabbing attention for, but 90% of the stuff she does is just interesting applications of 3D printing, interesting applications of software and coding, and she's fighting a fight very much all on her own right now, and I want to see people out there supporting her more than just the small Twitter base that she has right now.
Well, it's not
And
her Twitter base is not that small. She's got over 8,000 followers.
yeah, but she should be. I mean, she's been on the front page of Reddit a number of times, and it's always for the sexy stuff that she does that brings her to the front page of Reddit. But then it's also that's the stuff that is excluding her from the maker market in America at the same time. So it's this double standard that's really irritating to see, coming up. And she's with the Make people and the Raspberry Pi people, she's really had a fight for just displaying normal stuff that she's
Well,
made.
well, yeah, and as much as in this industry of recent years, we've tried to show how inclusive we're being. It's weird. This is an issue. Um, it seems like it's more of an issue of content than uh, gender, but yeah, I agree with you. And just real clear to make sure everybody's clear, this is not Mrs. Indonesia, who's the PHP developer. We've kind of segued into another
I
topic.
segued nicely. I think it made sense.
You did. No, you absolutely did, and it absolutely did. I just wanted
Yeah.
to reiterate that.
Well, I guess the reason for me it's a soapbox issue is because when Miss Indonesia says she's a PHP developer, it makes front page and everyone is very excited. But when another woman says she's a maker and she does it her way, there are people who say, "Oh no, you can't do it that way. It's too sexy, too risque," and that's the double standard I don't like to see, where
Mhm.
the Miss Universe is the socially acceptable way to be an attractive woman and be a programmer, versus if you want to do it your own way, you're going to have to go through somebody's gatekeeping.
Yeah, yeah. It'd be fun. It'd be interesting to see if Mrs. Indonesia, if she did coding for an adult website, if they'd still be
Yeah,
talking
that's.
about.
I know that if she did acting for an adult website, she would be excluded from the competition.
Yeah. Well, that was an interesting little tangent, and you've turned me on to a nifty little Twitter handle. I'm going to start to follow.
She's she does
I've
fascinating stuff. I mean,
I've so
it's
wanted to get into make. So I have several Raspberry Pis, and I play with them. I enjoy doing little projects on them, but the closest thing I've ever kind of did on it that I thought was cool was I started to set it up as a monitoring system where I had bought a camera for it. I did everything, and I was going to actually implement it for home security. But once I kind of did all the math, I'm like, I can just go get a Nest for the same amount as opposed to buying a bunch of Raspberry Pis. But that's what I enjoy with Raspberry Pi. Um, it just gives me a chance to play with some hardware that I don't typically do. So I've been really wanting to get into that and 3D printing more, and I just don't have enough ideas or projects to make it worth it.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I'm most fascinated about what she does is that it she shows how small something can be to be cool. Um, she has shirts that have LCD effects on them, and she makes 3D printed coins for Chinese New Year, and
Mhm.
she has boots that have projectors built into them, so they project some sort of aura around her when she's walking around.
I
It's
think that is that the boots or is that the wrist thing she's wearing?
That's the boots. The wrist thing is she has a wrist holder for her little mini quadcopters that
Mm.
has the remote built into it, and then holders for two quadcopters.
Yeah.
She has 3D printed accessories for her tools around the shop. She has these 3D printed hair bands that have LCD effects around them.
So
I mean,
she's
it's
cool.
like she's super cool, and for her, she sees cool stuff and says, "Hey, check this out. This is cool." And she's in a part of the world that is really cool, and she's reporting it back to English-speaking America, and it's very fun.
Where's she
And
at? She's in Japan or
she's in China.
China? China.
Yeah, she's in Beijing.
Cool. Very cool.
So yeah, big shout out to Naomi Wu. I'm a huge fan. Awesome stuff.
We know we're not talking about politics, right?
No, are we? Is this the part where we whisper?
We have to be very quiet. We don't want people to hear us.
Someone listening on it and listening into
Uh,
us?
I don't know.
Wait, are
All
you
right.
introducing a doom and gloom segment?
No, I'm prepping our listeners that if they want to turn off the podcast, now would be a good time because you're about to talk doom and gloom.
I thought we had a
Donald,
musical hit for that.
yeah, I know. What do you got here, Thomas?
Well, with the new administration, there's a lot of new roles to be, or a lot of old roles to be filled with new people, and unfortunately, uh, the next chair of the FCC has been chosen by Donald Trump, and it's going to be Ajit Pal, who is a big opponent of net neutrality.
God, this scares me so much.
Yeah. And I wouldn't normally bring the politics of net neutrality and stuff up in the podcast, but uh, it is something that affects our livelihoods on a pretty significant level. Um, as things are right now, uh, the FCC had passed regulations that would give strong protections to net neutrality. Um, a lot of the provider companies were against these kinds of regulations because they felt that it was bad for consumers, which I don't think anyone's falling for that. But now, now it's under a new head, and unfortunately, the new head is a former lobbyist and executive with the big telecommunication guys.
So we're under the new Trump administration. Don't we, as Americans, now have the right to say his name makes him sound like he's a terrorist and have him exported out of the country? Isn't that something we can do now? Because it sounds like his name is a terrorist name, and I think we should kick him out of the country, and he can't be in charge of the FCC. I think that's something we're allowed to do now. We're allowed to be racist under the Trump administration.
I think you were allowed to before, but I think it's just generally frowned upon by well-intended people.
Well, there's not enough well-intended people to, in this country anymore, and so now it's okay. I don't know. This pisses me off. I try not to get into political activism too much, but this is one topic that I feel like I could thrust myself into and just start to do all the rah-rahing around net neutrality and the benefits of it and how we have to have it. I feel like I've been able to build a business because of net neutrality. And if this goes away, oh man.
Yeah, I think
This
a few months ago I would have said if they do remove these net neutrality protections, how bad could it get? But
mhm.
we're living in a time where it can get that bad. Yes, like,
And
and
what's funny
that was the
is,
defense. So many of the net neutrality opponents said, well, we wouldn't abuse these these rules. We wouldn't abuse consumers.
yeah,
So it's perfectly
whatever.
fine because we'll be the good guys. But they're proving now that they have no intention on being the good guys. They just want the money and they're working really hard to get it.
Yeah, exactly, and that's exactly what it is. It's a money grab, and the thing is you have the people say, well, this just makes it easier for services like Netflix and Amazon to do the streaming and make sure that they have the bandwidth. I'm like, no, you don't understand. They would be locking out the next Netflix. There wouldn't have been a Netflix if there wasn't net neutrality. And the next Netflix that might be building up can easily be boxed out because they don't they don't have the money or resources to pay for the bandwidth, these extra taxes or these tariffs that they would be for if we didn't have net neutrality. And it's just is
It's a
it's
step
weird.
backwards when you look at people like Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates and people talking about how internet access is becoming a human right and fundamental to development of growing nations. To have someone say, yeah, but it belongs to AT&T is very backwards sounding. It's very anti-productive in my book.
Yeah, I agree. And the fact that, man, we have to take consideration the global implementation. We have to take in consideration that this is a global problem, or it would be a global problem,
Oh,
and
absolutely. In the same way that we're already starting a trade war with Mexico and it's been 7 days. If there were net neutrality protections removed, we could be in an internet or a data trade war with other countries overnight.
yeah.
You could see providers in other countries just say, "Oh no, we're going to completely snip America from the rest of the world." Because why wouldn't we? And I mean,
Mhm.
I'm in a state now where I wouldn't blame them.
Okay, what's going on with Uber? I'm sorry.
Uber?
We might need to cut this one. My
Nah.
my Twitter stream my Twitter stream. This is live news. My Twitter stream is blowing up with Uber tweets right now. People deleting the Uber app. I've used Uber for years. No more. The CEO is colluding with Trump and has chosen not to decree the ban. I'm deleting and joining. What is going on? Something just happened with Uber, and I don't know what I'm reading here. I'm just seeing the streams come in. Trump must
Really?
be impeached for abusing his powers and shredding. Ton of Trump tweets, tweets about Uber in New York City cab drivers and people deleting Uber and saying not to cross the picket line. If you like the convenience of Uber but find them disgusting, check out. Yeah, there is something happening right now as we do our podcasts. Um, and unfortunately, I don't have enough information to tell you what it is. I'm just looking at a bunch of tweets flood my stream right now around Trump, New York City cab drivers, and Uber. Did I buy you enough time to figure it out?
So Uber CEO Travis Kalanick, who is on Donald Trump's advisory board, is saying while every government has their own immigration controls, allowing people from all around the world to come here and make America their home has largely been the U.S.'s policy since its founding. That means this. Okay, no, that's not it. Well, he's defending Trump.
So the Uber
He
CEO is
emailed,
defending.
he emailed his employees.
Somebody just posted a Verge article. Let's see what that is. Verge usually jumps on this stuff. Federal court halts Trump's immigration ban. That's not going to be it. All right. Well, I don't know. Something's going on.
Uber's blowing up. Who knows?
Uber's blowing up.
We'll tell you next week.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I can give up my Uber. I like Uber. But I don't know. We'll see what they're doing here.
Oh, I want to give out personally a big congratulations to Chelsea Manning, and that's good news in my book.
Yeah. Yeah, Chelsea Manning getting her the pardon.
Yep.
Yeah, the pardon from
Not
Barack.
technically a pardon. It was a commutation.
Yeah, so she was the whistleblower. She, he was a whistleblower that became a she, or yeah, I don't know. I say these things so poorly and get in trouble with for my kids, and my Twitter people don't like me. So I don't
Just
know.
run it by your daughters; they'll set you straight.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly. I don't know what to say, but whatever. Those people are free to.
Would you like me to show you?
Show me what?
Show you how it's done?
Sure.
Said Chelsea Manning was a whistleblower, while at the time living as a man, she gathered information on a USB drive and released it publicly through WikiLeaks.
That works. And I do want to take a moment to say thanks to you and to Marcus Moore, your replacement, for covering for me in the
Very
Laravel
capable
user group.
replacement.
I am very excited about having Marcus work with me on the user group. I think he's a great guy, talented as hell, funny guy. We hung out at Laracon last year. So I'm so happy that he's stepped up and said he's willing to help out with the user group. I think he's a perfect fit. He's the type of person that just is going to thrive, and because we run the user group long enough, it starts to stagnate, right? Because you run it the same way, you have the same vision, you have the same ideas, and you get some fresh blood in there. And I think Marcus is that fresh blood. So do appreciate it. Oh, I didn't tell you. So come on, dude. You're not going to be gone yet. Why don't you try to make an SDPHP meetup?
I'm definitely want to do it. Unfortunately my head is too stuffed full of I guess it would be called fluids to make any commitments to anything.
You've got a couple weeks, right? You got 2 weeks, so you're fine.
Yeah, I got 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's not until February 8th. And the cool thing about this one is I had somebody reach out to me on Twitter, and his name, I don't want to say it wrong.
Oh, God,
Asmir,
doing it again.
Asmir Mutafik? I don't know. Look it up. Thomas, you got to say the names for me.
I'm going to start throwing in fake names for you.
So look up our next SDPHP meetup. He reached out to me because he said, hey, I'm traveling to San Diego. I'm going to be in San Diego for your next meetup. I would love to come by and catch the meetup. And if you don't have a presenter, I would even be willing to do a talk for you. I'm like, really? I love people like this. I do the same thing. It's like, if I'm in Phoenix and there's a meetup there, I go to the meetup. And my family thinks I'm crazy, but this is what the stuff I'm passionate about. This is how I make my living. I enjoy this stuff. For this guy to reach out to me, he's from Berlin, Germany, and for him to reach out to me and say, "Hey, yeah, I'm on vacation." Actually, I don't even think he's on vacation. I think he's working, but he's traveling. He's like, "Hey, I'm going to be in San Diego. Would love to stop by and do a talk." I'm like, "Freaking fantastic, man!" So he's going to be here in San Diego on February 8th doing a talk. He's going to talk about RESTful APIs and building them with the Symfony. I don't know if wasn't specific Symfony framework, but he just said Symfony, which can mean a lot of different things. Like maybe he's just using Symfony components. But yeah, I'm excited. If you're in San Diego and you're a PHP developer and you listen to this podcast, you've got to stop by this meetup and check this guy out.
His name is
Thomas
Asmir Mustafik.
Mustafik. Thomas, you got to be there, man. I missed our last Laravel meetup. You've got to come to the SDPHP one.
Tell you what, how about I tell you I'll be there and then I miss it by a day?
All right, that would be good. Thomas, you're a great friend. Appreciate everything you've done for San Diego Laravel. I'm sorry you're going to be moving on, but I'm happy for you too. I know it's something you're excited about.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, and I'll still be around in spirit and in webcam.
Oh yeah, we're not going anywhere. We're going to continue to do this podcast, so that's all still good.
And I'm gonna try and remotely attend. We'll see if we can get that working.
Yeah. All right, I think it's a good spot to wrap it up. We've run a little long. I know we had a couple breaks in there, so let's see what we end up with. But I do appreciate everything you've done, and I appreciate you covering for me this last week. And we are going to call this episode. What are we? 47.
47.
Call this episode 47. I'm Eric Van Johnson.
And I'm Tom Rideout.
Keep it ugly.
Woo.
Good talk, dude. That was a good talk.
Alrighty.
What is
I have a title for you.
Jesus. All right, what's the title?
Eric tries to say names.
No, come up with something better than that. Speaking names with Eric.
We do not talk about politics.
No, I think speaking names with Eric is good.
Enunciation with Eric.
All right. What's going on with Uber?
I don't know. Is there whatever happened?
I mean, it's just nonstop. Tens of thousands now marchers at JFK, O'Hara, SeaTac, and numerous other airports across America. Amazing, stunning, spontaneous protests. Uber, you conclude your falsities. I have no idea what's happening right now. Apparently, there's spontaneous protests going on. And New York seems to be involved. The cab line at JFK Airport is empty. At 6 p.m., New York City cab taxi drivers went on strike and protest. Okay. That's what's happening. There you go. Hours after Trump signs Muslim bill, Texas mosque goes up in flames. That's beautiful.
Really? Now, an emergency stay was issued over the ban, so his ban is no longer in effect.
Huh. I'm going to stop the stream. I'm going to stop recording here.
Oh, I already stopped recording. I've already finished encoding.
Stop the stream.